Project's meeting to order for July 22nd. Rich put public comment on the agenda, so is there any comment from the public? Hearing none, seeing none. We'll move on. Vote of prior meeting minutes. Did everyone have a chance to read the minutes? Thank you, Erica.
You remember.
I like.
I'll move to approve the meeting minutes,
Second.
and well, if I haven't finished.
The other thing I could remember was I had the meeting,
I know that's the hardest one.
but I'll make a vote on it, I don't know what there.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right. So who wants to, Jackie, do you want to do the schedule or is that Lauren?
I can start quickly,
Okay.
and I know we have, I think, separate updates at the end of on other portions of the agenda.
Okay.
So I'll just go over the schedule really quick. And then I know you have more detail, Lauren, on some of that sort of updates and PowerPoint. So I think overview for collection system is that our schedule keeps moving. Essentially, our subs, both the utility markout and the surveyor, have been taking significantly longer than what we originally thought. I know one of the main reasons talking to the surveyor was they were having issues with Eversource and National Grid marking out all the utilities. So they have to keep going back out. They also are collecting every sill elevation. So they started in March and they focused on Route 6. So they got Route 6 done right before Memorial Day. And then they were moving to more of like the water mandatory area on Schoolhouse and Candlewood and focusing on that area, but they also had to follow the markout company, which is GPRS. And that was the private company where we have them marking out the full width of the road and paying special attention to the separate list that we have of town roads where Eversource won't mark out the electric, even though they have records. It's like those kind of town resident owned electric roads. So that's why we mobilize them to all of the roads, and then also we have to have them mark out the road before we do any of around 130 of the borings. So those are kind of like the critical path that's kind of pushed our timeline. And that's kind of the portion that's out of our control. But in the meantime, we've been doing everything behind the scenes that we could on the plans, getting those all ready so that once we get that survey piece, it's more, the only thing that changes for us, instead of maybe we had a couple people in CAD working on different files, we just have to get into that window and have more people and more files. Just so we can get it done faster than what we originally thought, since we thought the surveyor would be done
So
soon.
it's holding it back, but it won't interfere with the end dates.
Right.
Okay.
We're still, I mean, the main goal is we're really up against that June 30th. That's when we have to have contractors by, so we've worked kind of everything backwards. So in terms of the collection system, we don't have the complicated process that Lauren will go through with the treatment plant. It's just a separate, probably month bid. So we were looking at a bidding window for April, starting in April, and that still gave us enough float. I know a lot of the water project jobs, I think the latest we went was May 15th.
Yeah.
And we still had plenty of time to get the signed contract just through select board and things like that.
Can I ask you a question about the contracts that you have to have in hand, before June 30th? Do you have to have all of them? Or do you just need the plan? Or do you just need phase one out of phase by phases?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So that's, I mean, unofficially, I've talked to SRF like even months ago to kind of get that answer. And they unofficially told me that we might be all set, but we haven't been working that way. We've been working that we have to, and we didn't engage any like official discussion to tell them. But I think we were planning on maybe even just talking to them about the financing, because we are limited to the 50 million per year. So if we put out bids and all of a sudden we have 170 million, how is that gonna work? It's kind of been our.
Yeah, we're gonna have to make choices at some point.
Yeah, it might be out of order, but since you mentioned it, so I have a finance committee meeting Thursday, and when I haven't sent it to you yet, but will after this meeting, the packet for the finance committee. And this month's topic is the impacts on our debt service based on bonds being issued that are in our capital improvement plan. And so for the wastewater project, with the $50 million cap, I put $50 million this year with a 1 year gap to repayment, then another 50 million. So I put it in three $50 million increments and 20 million at the end. So that was my question to you, Jackie, is how do we contract that to fit into those increments, or is that not gonna be a thing with SRF? Are they gonna take on the whole project but just give us money? But our contractors wouldn't work on a promise of getting paid from SRF
Right.
a year later, you know, so.
And they'll break it up in the 50 million, but that doesn't mean they'll give us 150 million loan. They could break up the contracts, and if they have more money or less money. And then I was also thinking the timing of if we were on this year's IUP, technically, we could have submitted, right away once we were on the IUP, and they could have given us the 50 million. So then next year, does that also count when we go out to bid? Do we get 100 million? So that's something we have to engage SRF with.
And
I
I
could
think
figure out.
we had limits in water, but it was so much easier because we could break the water contracts up into whatever size pieces we needed to, so it was different, but Jackie was always, you still are negotiating with SRF every day on what we can include, what we can't include. So they're pretty good about that. They've been pretty good about it, but this is the first time we've gotten that hard cap.
The 50 million.
Yeah, on a project like this big.
Well, I'll ask Lauren when she talks about her schedule and stuff, but how do you build? You know, because plan will be more than 50 million, I'm pretty sure, so. How do you break that down into two pieces? How would we, is there a way to carve out a beginning contract on the plant and a small piece of a collection system? And if the second, or another tranche of it, the next year through SRF, is that something that can happen on a plant, or is that an all or
Yeah,
nothing?
well, I mean, so the plant itself is definitely going to take a couple years to build anyway. So I think from I guess the original cost estimate was in the range, and now I forget, it was like around $70 million. So that would get split over 2 years, at least, and probably more. We haven't really, evaluated the entire anticipated construction schedule. So depending on how that would work with the contractor, who would in theory, I guess, would have to take a bond out for the entire amount, is it okay that the town is only going to have, $50 million a year, or 35 if, another 15 goes to collection system.
Well,
So,
that's why the guarantee is just so important.
But don't we have
Yeah.
authorization for 170?
Yeah, and we've got the guarantee, so that's why it would have been impossible to do this without those guarantees, but. But no,
Yeah.
it's good to hear, Lauren, that it's not an all or nothing thing on the plant. You can break down some of the mobilization and initial phases of the plant from perhaps outfitting and equipping. and all
Oh,
that.
yeah, definitely. I mean, at this point, a lot of the electrical equipment and certain types of, certain pieces of the process technology, the lead times are still pretty long at times. So it would definitely, by the time, let's just say the contracts were in place by June, we're getting shop drawings, mid to late 2026. And then, so that would already be 1 year under our belts where there wouldn't be too much work being completed. And then you'd have the shop drawings and like pretty much the start point for lead times on certain pieces of equipment. So I think it would work out.
If I could chime in a little bit here too on our end. So we are thinking that the collection system will be about 4 to 5 contracts. So the pump stations will be 1 contract, and then each of the smaller contracts of phase 1 would be 1 contract. But to, speaking on behalf, like not on behalf of Lauren, but if you're building the plant and then you're looking at $80 million, right there off the bat, you have 5% mobilization, right? Which is about $4 million based on 80. So there will be some costs associated with the plant at the beginning. And you get the general conditions, the concrete work is pretty substantial to get the foundation, anything below grade and all of that, because that's probably going to happen before the end of the year, because, they want the concrete, they want to be above grade all the concrete being done by December. So that being said, I think the plant is gonna occupy quite a bit of it, but I think on our end, we could maybe push off 2 or 3 of these contracts to like, further later years perhaps. We don't have to bid all the collection system in 1 year. That's another option.
Well, I think the reality of what we're talking about here is it's not too early to develop a construction schedule right now.
Right.
So that you can see how the phasing is gonna work out over the next 3-year period of time. Which would turn it into a cash flow for the town.
It might be too early now, but it might not be too early after the SRF submission. Like between now and the SRF submission, I think we're gonna be fully occupied. But then once we get the SRF submission in, then we could pick up that.
I'd only throw out the fact that it's not a lot of work to put a schedule together.
Oh,
It's really a thinking process for a few hours to think how Ziad's already done it as far as how you're proposing to break out the contracts for the collection, how you're proposing to have separate contract for the pump station. So you've already got the thoughts, and now it's just lining them up on how you would interpret that over the next 3-4 years, whatever the time period is, so.
That's not a bad idea, Steve, but probably to Jackie's point. And I'll let Lauren speak to her timeline and schedule as well, but it's gonna be really tight just to get the SRF submission. So I don't know that I wanna distract too much, but it's certainly been on my mind for our financial planning, which we're starting this month with the finance committee, and then the next couple months with the 5-10 year projections. And I'm gonna have to do a lot of financial planning related to the wastewater project anyway, so I was thinking, let's get through the submission. Once that's done, then I can start engaging with these folks a little bit more to start sussing out the details and timing of some of these things, and then start incorporating into my planning. And go to this committee and the finance committee. Cause I think that's gonna be a little bit of an art form to make this
no doubt.
pieces together.
When do you propose talking to the state as far as, the question for June 30th next year? Is that something you're gonna wait till the spring? And then on this
I'd
fall?
rather do that now.
Right,
I think I'll talk to them behind the scenes a little bit and then try to call together an official meeting.
And then as Jackie does that, I poke her brain and others, what's the latest thinking and information that I can start updating our plans. I'll just keep communicating it to both the committees.
Yeah, and I guess I'll chime in. Yeah, honestly, our main goal is getting the design in by the SRF deadline to make sure we can ensure the town will get the funding. And I think, like you said, it's not a too big an effort to figure out the constructability or figure out the construction schedule. But I think there is a little bit of, checking in with some of the contractors and engineers, because what I've been hearing from everyone is that could be a lot of the holdup in future years is being able to have, the engineer design, the household's lateral and be able to construct that. So I think there's a little bit more involved to get something that's really, really, close to what we would expect. But again, like Jackie and Rich said, I think after October 3rd, we'd have a little more breathing room to look at that.
Jackie, this holdup with the markup people in the survey is, you don't think it's gonna affect you in terms of the June 30th, but how about in terms of the October 15th, the SRF submittal?
We'll still have something to submit, definitely.
Enough.
And the SRF submission isn't a technical review of what we're submitting. There's a checklist that goes along with the plans and the specs. And they look for that we have all the official SRF language in there, and it's mostly Division 0. And then all they simply do is they want the project approval certificate to go to the trust by the end of December. And then if we're missing a permit or anything that they need us to fix before bid, they just make it a restricted pack. So,
is there a checklist that you respond to on the 10-15 submission?
yes,
There is.
with the plans and specs, it's more of, well, there's kind of 2 checklists. So the plans and specs checklist is it will have one item for each like language that you need to have in there, and you write where you have it in your plans or specs. And then the checklist, it's usually in a couple parts, like the first part would just be the town's information, the second part would be the cost estimate. And then the third part would be all the permits that we identified that we needed to have.
You need to have the 30% design at that point, or 60? Doesn't look like you need the 60 for that.
They don't really put a
They
title.
don't put the percentage,
I mean.
but they do want a cost estimate.
Yeah,
So we need to be far enough along so that we have a sense.
Yeah, so you get that, I guess.
Yeah, and we've actually got, a copy of the checklist printed out, and there's policy memos that indicate the language that Jackie mentioned. And what we like to also do is, especially with a wastewater treatment plant design, occasionally there's certain things relative to the guidance documents that we follow that we might do in a slightly different way, that we automatically, let DEP know what we are doing. And how it might be slightly different than what they're recommending, so they can, get that off the bat, check it off, and, be on their way. So that's how we usually like to handle it.
Where are we? Lauren, do you have any schedule stuff you want to talk about?
Sure. Yeah, I think everybody got the materials that Rich sent, but let me share my screen. Okay, everybody see it?
Little,
Yeah.
but we got it.
Okay,
Hopefully you have it in
hopefully.
view.
Yeah, hopefully people have it on in front of them. So as I think everyone saw, we were originally planning to have our 60% design submittal towards the end of June of this year. And based on a lot of the design changes that we went through in April, really to help ensure that the town vote would happen. So, we moved the buildings basically to the west side of the property, moved around the recharge beds, and did some other things to help with any potential noise or odor concerns. So that put us a little bit behind as far as the 60% design submittal went. There's a few things that we had to redo in order to accommodate the changes. So we have our 60% design actually coming in next week. So I do apologize. I know I gave a partial plan set, and some of the things that we have aren't quite finalized, because we'll have the 60% next week. So that'll be on Tuesday, July 29th. And then we have our 60% design workshop on Tuesday, July 19th, partially due to a few vacations in the mix. But I will be in person. Our design manager is planning to be in person, as well as a couple other people who are close by. So we've got a draft of that agenda that I think that's a little bit later in the agenda. We'll go over that, that we've developed. Probably about a half-day workshop, a lot of drawings and things to cover. So it will take up, a decent amount of time. And so then we have our SRF deadline, which, we're kind of calling it a target 90% deadline. But, we've kind of known all along this has been a tight deadline here to get this project completed. So we have our SRF deadline officially on Friday, October 3rd. And I know there might be some documents that still might say the 15th. SRF very nicely changed it on us midway. So that went from October 15th to October 3rd. So that kind of, shoved us in a little bit more into September. So to really accommodate that, we are planning on submitting a draft for QA/QC review, and then also simultaneously sending that draft over to Apex and the town, so we can try to, combine comments together. I actually might even have how we do comments for these drawings is through like a Bluebeam session. It's like an Adobe product, and we might be able to share that externally. I heard, so we might be able to make it a little easier for anyone who has direct comments that they want to put on the drawings. So I'll follow up more on that. So we have our, I guess, SRF submittal cost estimate a little bit before the deadline. So on Friday, the 19th of September, in order to prepare us for that October 3rd deadline. And we have a design workshop. You know, by this point, I think we've had several meetings, and, you know, we talk now on a weekly basis. So hopefully there's no surprises by the 23rd, but we can go through any, you know, last minute details that we need to cover, you know, go through the cost estimate, you know, with a fine tooth comb, and then get prepared to put together our submittal by the 3rd. And I believe that gets put in online, and I think Jackie Tupper, I know you handled the SRF submittal in July, so I was assuming, you know, we'll figure that all out and make sure that's in by then online. And so that again is a targeted 90% design submittal. So our final design submittal will come a little bit later, right at the beginning of January. We're trying to give ourselves ample time to be able to go through the filed sub-bid process, as well as pre-qualifying the contractors, and then obviously, you know, putting the actual bid out. So even though the actual bid, I think, ends up being, yeah, sometime in, you know, I guess over a period of January to May, it does have to start a little earlier because of all the filed sub-bids that we have to do. So with the effort of having all the contracts signed by June 30th, and notice proceed shortly thereafter. So that's really the update. We are working as well on some of the permitting deadlines. Again, and we'll talk about it a little bit. One of the next critical path items is our Hydrogeological report, which is imminent. We've kind of segued into finalizing the 60% design and preparing for this meeting today. But we should have that over to Apex and the town shortly. And shortly after that, we will also be submitting the groundwater discharge permit application. And those are some of our key permitting efforts. Obviously, there's a number of town of Eastham permits that we'll be looking for, you know, planning and zoning and a few others. And we've been talking with the whole team, including Kim and John, about getting some of that moving so we can be prepared for those deadlines when those are needed.
To
I
that
guess.
point, we have, there's, talked a little bit this afternoon, that we might ask some of our other permitting departments, police, fire, health, health will be here, but, other departments, building department, to attend the next CPC meeting, just so they're exposed to the project and have an understanding of it. And then we're also inviting them to the 60% design workshop, so that as that permitting moves along, that it's not a brand new thing that's, you know, they can start ramping up to taking on that work that's gonna be required for them to, you know, evaluate what they need to do for the permits, so.
Fine's gonna make one of those departments.
Hillary represents the conscom, she supervises. But yes, I'm sure there's wetlands somewhere.
Has the fire department had a look at these plans yet? In terms of
No, that's why-
traffic,
So that's why we're thinking, if that holds true to our regular schedule, I think the 12th of August is a regularly scheduled CPC.
right,
And then the 19th for the workshop, so if we had fire department coming in the 12th, and in the meantime, we'll start feeding them some information before then as well. They'll start getting exposed to the project.
Well, the GATD designers were gonna.
Right.
Yeah, we were anticipating trying to meet with them, honestly, when they're available over the next couple weeks, just to make sure. A lot of, I think what they'll be concerned about is access to the site, you know, where and how they want to access it. We have made sure that the roadways, you know, can accommodate, you know, a fire engine. But just to make sure that their preferences are accommodated for access to especially the two buildings.
the old schedules were kind of thrown away and started over again, this new set on July, or seemed to be activities that had disappeared from the other set of schedules.
I can check them. We did just make a new draft for this one.
Value engineering is not on there, for example, the
I think-
town activities weren't on the schedule, they're on the old schedule. Maybe you got that under control, I don't know, but,
And I know for value engineering, I think the plan for GHD, it's such a tight schedule, they're not gonna stop working at all.
I wouldn't expect them
So
to.
that would be done at the same time.
Right.
So that design workshop is pretty important.
And one of the things we talked about is, especially when it comes down to getting a estimate, especially at the 60% workshop, is to see what those estimates are and what the, you know, how that fits in or not within our overall appropriation. And then, you know, we'll be prepared, GHD and Apex and us, of things that potentially could be alternates, bid alternates, if we need to reduce the price, or if we would like to reduce the price, you know, things that are not necessary, not that they're not necessary, but you know, for example, we've been talking about the SBR covers. What's the cost of SBR covers? What, you know, it's something we want to do, but at what cost type of thing?
Carry is an option, right?
And what was the cost of adding the covers on the SPR?
We don't have a cost.
We don't have a cost.
That's what I was saying, that those would be the types of
Yeah,
things
ballpark.
that would be potential bid alternates that we can consider, start talking about at the workshop.
Yeah, we might have, I do think we have the, a cost estimate from a vendor, but, you'll have the cost estimate. It'll have some breakdown next week.
I'm not gonna get it now.
And that'll go to Apex first, EPG first.
As far as the contracts with Apex and GHD right now, do they extend through the purchase period? Or is it through the design only?
We have a contract through, I think, the SRF application. Or through the end of this year. I can't remember what I'll have to go back and look, but the tasks do end. So we're paying right now for the tasks that are under that almost $6 million borrowing. And then we'll move into the second borrow, so.
I guess my point of bringing it up now is it's not that far away. And if there's contract extensions, something like that, is somebody working on that, or things take time to do too?
Well, they usually, my experience is they usually do not stop work while we're doing those extensions. I mean, we're all pretty experienced at working together at this point, so hoping that we can just do it seamlessly. I know, maybe we can talk about that for either the next meeting. Take a look at where we are.
We did do just the formal time extensions. It's the other ones until June 30th. So the current contracts were extended again, time-wise, and they are for the full design. And then GHD's was just capped 300,000 less. Due to that $6 million appropriation.
Yeah.
And that just depends on, so they're getting to 90%, but also. Maybe Laura can explain it better, but it's more of like a time materials not to exceed. So if they don't need that.
Right.
3,000.
Yeah, Jackie's got it right. So yeah, we have been starting to think about, and I know we've mentioned at a meeting, what construction services would look like. So that'll be something that we'll follow as a separate proposal.
But is all this is worth that's on this sheet in the $6 million contract?
Say that again? Everything on the schedule sheet?
Yeah, it's on the schedule sheet in the $6 million that's been allocated.
Correct, yeah. So well, I guess I won't speak to the whole 6 million, but I know for GHD's contract, it takes us through the design and bidding process.
And the same with you guys.
Yep.
I mean, we did it intentionally that way in case.
No, I
yeah.
understand. I just, I guess I'd like to see the contracts where you do renegotiate them. Hopefully you do, but
Okay, didn't I give you them before? Okay, well, we have them, we can get them to you now if you want to look at. Update on site assignment, are we done with schedule update?
I'm set unless there's questions.
So I think for the site assignment, it was me, Lauren, Jeff, and Ziad. So Lauren, Ziad, you can chime in too. We met with Mass DEP Solid Waste Group on what the site assignment was for the landfill transfer station. And since they told us during that meeting, since technically the plant is on, if you look at the old parcels map, it's site assigned as the transfer station. So GHD has to submit a permit with the solid waste department, separate from just the wastewater part of DEP. They were really mostly just looking for a project narrative, the plans. They don't review any technical information, but just ensuring that we're not interfering with the landfill at all. I'm still following up with them on the pump station because it looks like if you look at the older maps, we're not on the site assigned landfill, even though we're about 150 feet south of the liner. But we might not actually be on the parcel. So they're still looking into that. We followed up with a few sketches. But even if it's the case, it's just the same type of thing. We'd submit a separate permit for the pump station for the collection system, project narrative, map, and show that we're not impacting landfill.
So you're not on the parcel, what parcel on your, are you on?
I was weirdly
Right.
divided.
The DPW site has two parcels, one DPW, one transfer station.
Right. No,
But
but the pump station was gonna be on the transfer station parcel. Down at the bottom of the hill, right?
Right, so they were looking at documents, I forget the years, one I think was 1978, one was another. So those were the original documents that identified certain parcels as part of the site assignment. So that's when Hillary dug up all the old maps at town hall. And the old maps don't show two parcels, like the southern area has maybe like 6 small little parcels, so on the old maps, I don't think we're in it. But they may still make us because now there are two. But they're looking into it.
But it shouldn't be a huge hurdle if we have to do it for a pump station.
It's just more paperwork.
Yeah, and I think we're thinking similar. Yeah, we weren't until those maps got uncovered, aware that the DPW part, because we had tried to keep the
Yeah.
design really on that upper part of the parcel because we thought it was separate. But I've found out that isn't the case. But again, like Jackie said, it's more of a paper exercise. I think the one thing, and I think Hillary and Kim are already on it, but looking for some information relative to the post-closure documents for the landfill, pardon me, to help us in showing that this is not going to affect the transfer station or landfill site.
So it's just a simple exercise, excuse me, I've gone through it for the town of Whitman, putting the force main through the city Brockton landfill. It is a minor modification. It's SW37 post-closure monitoring, a post-closure modification to a capped landfill. So again, it's a short exercise. I think they wanted us to make sure that there's no migration of gases from the landfill that would impact the building and then anything related to the wastewater treatment plant. So obviously, if there is gas monitoring on the landfill today and then we're not really seeing any hits, I mean, that's the only thing we could go by, honestly. We're not going to predict whether it be some off gassing or not, because we don't know what's below grade. But from a permitting perspective, I think the whole thing should be pretty straightforward. Maybe a couple days worth of work, submit to DP, they'll do the administrative review and they'll get back to us within like 45 days. But that's pretty much the extent of it.
Do you need copies of any of those reports for the landfill monitoring gas wells? Or DEP should have it all.
Yeah, that maybe you're right, they should have it, but I think we need to put a narrative together.
Okay.
And again, all we have to say that it's been, landfill's been monitored and then the readings have been recorded, X,
Yeah,
Y, Z
okay.
times per year, and then here's the output, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have those, if they're large, feel free to pop them on the SharePoint site.
Hydrogeo report is next week. Do you
Yes.
have anything to discuss on that for today's meeting?
No, I don't think so. I think I kind of covered it briefly. Like I said, it's really an extension of the scope of work that was submitted prior. We had our modelers redo basically the evaluations with the new setup for the site plan. And we had also, earlier this year gotten some additional information relative to the wetland that was on the western side of the DPW parcel so that we could officially make the proper boundaries for the water body, which the DEP would be looking for. So really, I'm going through it and making sure it is, very much exactly how they want to have it, so we can help make their review more quick.
But in the process of changing the design and going through that, your team did not see any red flags that would alert DEP that there was a problem. I mean, the test pits and all that stuff worked out.
Right.
Okay.
No, everything was pretty similar. Actually, some of the particle tracking actually looked a little better with it more spread out.
Cool.
So instead of and this is getting a little beyond me, but some of the particles were going into a different groundwater lens, and they would basically just shoot off in different directions. But how it is now, it's kind of all going in the same flow path. So yeah. No red
Excellent.
flags there.
Rich, you want to do the financial report?
Yeah, in the packet is 6 pages, but the first 3 are really just the year by year. Going forward in the future, I'll probably just do this project to date. That's page 4. Start that. And the way this is set up within our financial management system is one of the things that is kind of bothersome for me with the water project is we have parts of it throughout our ledger in different spots. And so when we started this, I asked our town accountant to put all wastewater related activities within one fund, so we all have it in one spot. And we use what's called different org numbers to segregate different segments of it. So what you'll see here is the first thing listed, org 3017-5, town funds unrestricted. And then the green is 3017 is various orgs, is wastewater design and engineering. That's the 5,950,000 bond.
Yep.
Below that, there's a pond studies and sampling org. That's just some extra free cash that was doing some work related to the project, but not impactful to the $6 million. Then we also have a USDA grant that we're doing that's wastewater related, so that's in that fund as well. Just so that going back, we can see easily how much we spent on wastewater infrastructure and planning and design and engineering for all this type of stuff. But the 2 key things I really want you to focus on is the first 2, town funds unrestricted and the wastewater design and engineering, the 6 million. The unrestricted is a result of some creative stewardship of our ARPA funds and old articles that were related to wastewater planning. So we had a couple of sources, 301,000 from ARPA and 218,000, and that came from Barnstable County. And Salt Pond article 218 that was voted for wastewater design. And we're designing the salt pond watershed. So we rolled it into this and we have unspent bond proceeds from that, and that's what that represents. So the long and short of this is on page 4 here at the top, you see the budget is 519,000. I mean, it's gonna go through this once so that in the future we talk about, hopefully it's easier. You notice you got the funding sources, 519 total revenues coming in that first column as on the budget. And then below, it's an expenditure account, but I consider it like a control account. It's called unallocated expenditures. There'll never be anything spent out of that account. It's there for budgetary purposes. So that if we decide to designate it for something, it'll come out of that and go into a line item that's a very specific item that we agree that that's what we're gonna use it for. So right now, we've got all the way to the right, well, as you move over to the right, there's no transfers. The actual money actually came in, it's actually in the fund. We haven't spent anything under unallocated expenditures for the unrestricted board. So we've got $519,000 available. We don't have any encumbrances against it. And so that remains available to us. And like I said, it's town money that's available to us. So we didn't spend that without appropriation or without SRF approvals. Then moving down to the green section, the design engineering, under the budget column, you see the bond proceeds of $5,950,000 being budgeted. And similarly speaking, we immediately put it to an unallocated expenditure account. But then when you look to the next column under budget transfers, you see a bunch of things coming out. So as we let contracts, we take it out of that amount and put it down below where it belongs. So you see that first, I'm gonna skip the 80,000 because I gotta follow up on that. Let's just talk about the transfer to 35, 3,218,000. That's phase 1 plant design and SRF submissions. That's GHD. So that was our contract. It came out of 5,950,000 and went down to org 35 under these lines, which match the contract lines. And as we process bills, when we look at the actual column, that's how much we've paid against each of those. So what's remaining, a balance, and we have them fully encumbered at this point. So there's nothing available. So this is through June 30th, and this is our internal effort. And so then one of the next steps I've got to take. So I've done that for all these things. So we got the GHD, we got Apex OPM services, we got the Apex collection system design. We had a small amount for a MEPA filing, which was done by GHD. So now that the fiscal year is over, one of the things I want to do, because Jackie with Apex as the OPM will be keeping a lot of financial records and doing a lot of the submissions to SRF. One of the challenges we had with water is a lot of times those records kept by the OPM didn't jive or tie out exactly to our ledger. Again, because we had lots of different spots where it went in our ledger, so it became difficult. So that's why I consolidated to this one fund. And so now we actually will have Jackie set up to read into our financial management system. So as she prepares reports, hopefully we're reconciling that activity concurrently. And we'll have to meet to make sure that, you know, we continue to have the same stuff. So we're on the same page. And when I need to know what we have available or not available, I can give a true number and feel confident about it. But the other thing I need to do, probably relatively soon, goes to one of your earlier questions, is from time to time, we need to evaluate these current encumbrances. Are they still valid? Do they need to be increased? Or do we have a savings that we can recognize and unencumber it to make it available for something else? So on the $6 million contract, if you look at under that expenditures line, you can see that we brought in the $5,950,000 of the bond proceeds, and we've allocated out less than that. So there's $286,365 currently available remaining under that unallocated. But that's why, again, I need to reevaluate our current encumbrances, make sure that they're what they need to be, and that we don't need to utilize that for anything.
Do your consultants respond to you on a monthly or bi-monthly basis saying, we're projecting our cost to be so much in the, you know, to complete our job, or you just work off the budget?
I haven't yet, but
Okay.
as we're right now that we're ramping up,
Because
I don't know how significant.
cost reporting.
Yeah, I don't know how much I'll need to do with that on the design, but when we get into construction services phase, that yes, would be a lot more important. And all those contractors generally have, what do you call those, the cost schedules where they have percent complete, amounts remaining, all that good stuff.
Scheduled hours.
Schedule
They're
values.
not submitting it against each ledger item, so you're putting it into the right slots. That goes for the 035.
No, I think they are, reporting on those items.
And tell me again why the 035 changed to 29, just so I understand how this goes. The 035, you started out 3,218,000, but you got down to the detail was 2,953. So
The
those,
3,218,000 has
just that one.
four
line.
components, right?
Yeah, those four.
Yeah.
To break down, gotcha.
So going forward, are there gonna be other ledger items like for construction and the like?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Did I hear something earlier about money being reserved, or anyway, the redesign of the site, moving the buildings around, is that an extra cost over what was paid?
Well,
Who knows?
Lauren, speak to
Materials,
those.
You know, at this point, we have not asked for additional funds.
Thank
Again, again, right? I don't know if that'll be permanently, but this is again a time and materials. So, and honestly, I'm looking at that 286 because I think how the contract was written, that there was the up to 90% design was the 3.2 million. And I want to say there was a small chunk for final design. But
Yeah.
again, if we're not expending it, you're not paying for it. It's not a lump sum design. So there's things that we're tracking, but at the same time, we're generally under budget, although we have we're going to be definitely have some ramping up the next few months. But we're trending okay.
Well, that's why I said, going forward, now that we've kind of got to this point, kind of hit the end of the year. On a time and materials contract, your point, Steve, is, we gotta have, what's the projection to complete the work, right? So that's why I gotta revise these encumbrances and, that probably is maybe not monthly, but definitely a periodic task to keep this.
Good. Thanks.
Thank you.
This is a living document. It'll get updated every.
I guess I'll add a little bit to that. So obviously Rich and I are gonna meet about some of the finances, and then I'm working on uploading everything to FileCloud. Just so you have all the documents, like the meeting minutes, just transferring it from our server and then transferring over the monthly reports. So you have that, like the monthly reports have kind of a little table for the contracts, what was done each month, and then the tasks that match that.
File cloud,
That's like the software that we're using.
said, there was some talk about getting us access to SharePoint site, is that part of it?
Yeah, so that's something we'll have to talk about. So we have a SharePoint site for the project. We can probably get you access to, as that, all that stuff. And then FileCloud's got Jackie's stuff. And then we also have our own OneDrive that, that we use. That maybe that's the way to go. So that's something I think we'll probably give to you for next meeting. How do you, or even in between, what do you want access to and how do you want to access it?
It's not all gonna be in one place, though.
No, I think the idea is place, at the moment, I think I'm leaning towards using our own internal system. So that you just put the relevant information you need, not everything, but you have everything.
Careful what you ask for.
Yeah, it's just like the wastewater information, it'll be endless. I mean, the water.
Gotcha.
Okay. Where are we? All right, Lauren, I think back to you, collections, oh no.
Oh.
Sorry, Jackie, collections.
I'll open
Were you gonna do that today or next time?
Yeah, I did attach a few maps. I
Okay.
could give like an overview. So those are just our latest updates.
Which one? One?
I think we had 3 different ones. Yep, just different views of it. So even though we don't have the survey, we've been able to kind of move forward with using some of the Mass DEP LiDAR and then data we had from the water plans to still kind of formulate what our plan was. And I'll get into this with the cost estimate, but I think we're safe cost-wise. When we originally submitted to SRF, I think our original concept was around 50,000 linear feet of pipe. But obviously, as we looked into, building a system that the plant could accommodate, making sure we get all salt pond, making sure we match the Route 6 landing, parcel area, the planning board changes on Route 6. I don't know if the numbers are on speakers now. We were getting closer to 80 to 90,000 feet of pipe. And that's what these figures show, the new, kind of the area that we agreed upon. And then one map, we just want to give you a basic breakdown. So what we've been trying to do is prioritize gravity sewer. So those are your 2 options, the gravity sewer and low pressure. And low pressure would be where residents are required to have grinder pumps. And those numbers on the bottom just give us our preliminary number. It keeps changing a little bit because the GIS parcels are a little bit different than the town parcels and are a little bit different than the addresses. So there will be some that might have 1 service based on the parcel, 2 addresses. So that 789 is plus or minus. And that breakdown between the 614 gravity and the 175 low pressure is just the estimates that we have now, but it's based off the pipe type that we're able to do based on the elevations that we have at the moment. But if there will be a lot of parcels within the gravity area where the building is below the road. So those residents would still need grinder pumps. So even though it says 175 low pressure, those would be the definite parcels, but then that number will be larger depending on how many parcels in gravity would need to be pumped up to the road. And then this one map, we just wanted to show the 2 different pipe types, and then we were looking at different elevations, and then in some areas we've been keeping it to go no deeper than 20 feet. But in some areas, we were looking to go deeper just to avoid having to have low pressure and residents on grinder pumps. And that the cost of the grinder pumps we have as an allowance in the SRF allocation.
So low pressure is where grinder pumps are needed.
Right,
And that's the orange in this flow map.
Yeah,
yes.
And those pipe depths, those small numbers,
Right, so we broke it up.
like 7,
We broke it up by 15.5 feet. So if it was shallower, it was a different color purple. If it was deeper, it was darker. And then just internally, we were trying to pull out what are some of the deepest spots.
so you say there's 2 options, but which option is this? One is for
Oh,
fewer pump
the
station.
2 pipe options would be gravity or low pressure.
They're both shown.
Or
So
low
it's up to
pressure.
2 things.
On
I'm
the other feet.
confused. Yeah, I'm a little still confused about
Wait, are you looking at what this map, the one with the purple?
this one, yeah.
Is that the one you're talking?
Yep, yeah, the gray one. I was talking about that one.
The gray one. So there's the pipe above 15.5 feet, pipe below 15.5 feet, and then the flood parcels that are gonna need pumps. So where's option 2? I thought option 1 was for fewer pump stations.
Or I was saying the two options are either the low pressure or the gravity type pipe. And that we were trying to prioritize gravity to avoid having grinder pumps on low pressure.
Could that went from 50,000 feet to 90,000 feet? Does that?
That was more just in the very beginning last year when we identified the phase 1 area. So originally, based on the TWMP, it was around 50,000. But this area that we're showing right here, adding up now that we have a GIS, the pipe footage, and that includes also not shown on this map, the force mains, which we'll get to on the other map, so that 80,000 includes force main lengths too,
80 and 90.
somewhere between 80 and 90.
Yeah. Yeah, 6 stars is 1 star, not a pump station.
We put 2 for pump station 4 because we were looking at the elementary school and the seashore parcel across from the conservation. Or that historic society building.
So you have 2 on 4, so you got 6 pumps.
We were looking at 5 total, so that's what the other map is. So the map in gray that we were talking about was just talking about looking at the pipe types, and then the other map, which it does say option 2, but that's because internally we had other maps where we were looking at different force main routing. But this is the one we were looking at right now. So the point of the different colors are the different sewer sheds going to each pump station.
Yep.
And there would be 5 different ones, and 4 just had the 2 stars because we were looking at 2 separate locations.
Okay,
But there'll only be one,
okay.
Correct.
ultimately.
That's either or then. Okay.
So are there 5 or 6 pump stations?
5.
5.
5, but they
There's 6
haven't,
on the
yeah,
map.
they haven't decided, no, on number 4, it's gonna be one or the other
Oh, yeah.
in 4. It's not both.
So then we don't have to go through the numbers, but the table on the bottom, we were just internally looking at. Based on our flow calcs that we did last year, what would be the flow for each sewer shed going into the pump station? And then if we have pump stations connecting into different areas to make it to the plant, that flow would be added on, and that's the flows we would use to calculate the pumps at the pump stations. And we were looking at different routing pathways, like this was option 2. We had another option where we were looking going up Route 6, but we want to minimize that for the future, having force mains. And the force mains are what would go from each pump station to each area. So this option right now is showing everything in the purple at the bottom for 5 would go into pump station number 5, but then the force main would pump it into the sewer shed for 4. Cause you can just pump right into the next gravity system and it'll flow to that pump station.
Yeah.
But I think what we wanted to bring up to CPC is get your opinions or buy-in on the pump stations we were looking at. So we chose the locations based on town-owned parcels. And then we're somewhat limited to the low areas to have the pump station. So everything's on a town-owned lot except, so the first area is the Elks Lodge. Then second one would be at the bottom part of DPW. Third would be at Children's Place, and the stars are just on the parcel. It's not like the pump station will be in that exact location on the parcel, depending on our borings. Then 4, we were looking at the elementary school and the seashore land, and then 5, we had already taken the town, took that parcel at town meeting.
Is the seashore, is that gonna be an issue too? That can be a problem. How
I think permitting wise, yeah.
cooperative are they?
Well, I know we're still working on the land swap, right?
So
Yeah,
we have
yeah.
about 8
Just-
land swaps currently in progress.
So that's what we had looked at originally, and we actually looked at, I don't know why I'm forgetting the name, it's like the Historical Society, I think, building.
Oh, yeah,
We looked at
yeah,
that, but then they did not want that, so. Then we moved it to it's kind of the seashore, and we can certainly do the elementary school, we just kind of always left that one open.
Sounds like you'd prefer
Yeah,
the
it's parking like that, it's a cell phone business center.
Mhm.
Right, if you get, do it, you get it in the parking lot of the cell phone business center, on the outer perimeter.
they're showing it on the other side of.
No, it's on name of that art place across the street.
Yeah, the historic, society is out,
Yeah.
but, actually, it's not even on that property, right? It's on seashore property.
I mean, we always kind of had an option, but I don't know if at this point. I think the permitting is probably a lot with them. To move
Yeah.
forward with it.
You'd prefer it there though, so it's Stevens.
We can definitely make the other location work. that was just a lower area at the time, and it was also just wooded, so it'd be easy to kind of put in.
What's
Versus,
what's the typical square footage of one of these facilities, just in terms of like, how big is this looking? When you decide where to put it in some of these parcels?
I think, Zia, you can correct me, but we were
Yeah.
looking at like 20 by 20.
Like a
So
big shed.
basically, with each of these pump stations, Steve, there would be two components or three components. There's the wet well, it's below grade, and there's like a box, which probably for the size, I'm looking at what was the biggest one here we have. Yeah, this would be like maybe 10 by 10, right? And there's a valve vault right next to it, some other precast structure, which is also buried below grade. And then, of course, you're gonna have to have emergency power, so it would be a generator, which is gonna be above grade, and a pump control panel. So overall, if you were to take the whole footprint of what would the station occupy, you're probably looking at maybe 30 by 30, 40 by 25, something like that. And then, of course, there's some screening around to kind of, limit visibility and things of that
Right,
nature.
right.
How about just the above ground part, Zia?
So the above ground portion would be a generator and the pump control panel. That could be a small enclosure, maybe 5 by 10. We want to be able to, so the plumbing code about a year ago got changed. And if you have a structure that has more than 200 aggregate square feet, you have to put a bathroom in it. So we're trying to avoid doing that here. Yeah, you have to do a bathroom unless you have an
Across the
existing
street.
facility within 400 feet or something like that. So we're trying to avoid doing that. So I think we would limit so basically we'll have the controls inside the enclosure and we have choices. We could go to, like United Concrete, they mimic a small enclosure with a brick facade or things of that nature, or we could just simply have a panel and we could have the generator right behind the panel and we'll put some screening in the front so nobody would see it. So there's a lot of options that we have, but I think preferably you want to enclose everything inside of a building or smaller building. So that could be 50 to 70 to 100 square feet at most.
But when you construct this, say, the area that you're disturbing is greater than 30 by 45, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, I could bring up some photos and show you. Maybe I'll send them separate. But basically, depending on the depth of the pump station, you may have to sheet it to be able to excavate and then put the wet well, which is the deepest thing, and then the enclosure itself would be sitting on a concrete pad, slab on grade. You don't really have to have foundation or anything for it. Just a small building. But I could send some photos, after this meeting.
Is the town library excluded on this map? Looks like you're
The
butted up,
right?
looks like you butted up to it, but didn't include it.
Yeah, that's not on here. I know we went down a little bit down Depot Road to get, I think, a bunch of parcels that Hillary said had some issues and needed to be hooked up, but we stopped at that one. And just went Depot, didn't go down Sunset.
Now, if it being a flow there, that'd be helpful to the town or not, maybe not.
I don't know flow wise, but I'm not sure if they have a septic system that's there that might need to be replaced in the future.
Yeah,
It's right on the pond too.
They have a 9-year-old innovative alternative septic system,
Would you eliminate that or would you
$86,000 for it, 2015.
go pay for it?
Yeah.
Would you eliminate it if you were on, so you wouldn't have the maintenance or anything else going forward?
there's an item on here about, expanded connection areas, so you can touch on that. Oh, Jackie, the number 4 and 5 are very close together. I'm sort of surprised you pump it up from 5, not very far, and then it hits another pump station.
Right, cause that was really 5 is picking up Route 6.
Yeah,
in the area with Locust Road, so it's all based on elevations.
It is high, it goes, the elevations rise,
yeah, it's
Right
it does
behind
go up the
five,
hill, but
yeah.
I mean, by the time it gets to 4, it's already up the hill, but that 4 just helps it along.
Right, and 4 allows us to get half of schoolhouse.
Yeah, it seems to me it would look a lot better to tuck it on the, over by the elementary school, instead of having it out on that corner of Nauset Road or something.
It's hard to visualize where that would be.
Jackie,
It's, I think it's right across the street from the historic society, right? You turn, you turn left on Schoolhouse.
It's right there.
Yeah, no, I know where
Oh,
the elementary school is. I'm
no, I
just
mean
saying,
the other one.
um,
What's hard to visualize? Where it would be? I missed-
Yeah.
Right across from the visitor center parking lot.
That's the one on Seashore.
The one that would be on Sea, yeah, if it were to go there, as opposed to next to the elementary school.
That would be more palatable to everybody except the National Park Service, right? We just have to deal with their permits. And I'm trying to remember how difficult it was. I think they put us through a lot of hoops to do, the permeable reactive barrier on their land. I mean, that was a good year and a half,
I remember.
at least, and.
So,
That runs
Because we
right
wanted to put it in the parking lot, and they wouldn't let us put it in the parking lot.
so why would that be more palatable though? Or it seems like. What's the matter with the elementary school site? It's a-
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out where it would be. I mean,
just
that site is pretty.
road that
crowded.
goes down to the landing. And it's just to the right, right on the corner of that road and that's what's showing here, I think.
Which one? The one on the seashore?
No, I think
No,
it's
in the
other
elementary
side.
school. No, that's it, isn't it, Fred? The road that goes down to the landing. You go up Schoolhouse, take a left onto that road. And it's right on it's right there, on that corner,
I'd say it's the southeast corner of the,
southeast.
right next to the road, you won't
Yeah.
want to be off the road too much.
But it's on town property.
I drive by it every day. I go look.
Yeah, see what you think?
It doesn't look to me like there's a room there, but.
Well, I guess the question is from a cost, constructability and engineering perspective, which one's better?
Yeah, I mean, the elementary school people are gonna complain about, and the neighbors next to it aren't gonna like it.
Everybody's,
But the Seashore Park is gonna take a lot of permitting time.
How close to the property line can you go with those things? Whatever
I'm not sure what the zoning
what
regs
the
are.
local zoning goes,
I have to check.
25 feet. Sheds can go closer if they call it a shed,
Yeah, but it's an underground.
Anything
thing.
else is the height of,
12 feet.
it's the height of the building or
Height of the
25
building
feet,
to the
or
building.
25 feet.
Anyway. It's been no
Whichever,
information.
whichever's more. I found that out with my garage.
Yep. Yep.
And did we decided that structure in the Stop and Shop parking lot is a pumping station yet?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it is too.
Yeah, there's,
But they did,
Well, that's
when,
the-
that's why I asked you that question, because
Yeah.
they dug up a huge area in the back of that park. Now, that must be the final push to
Yeah.
the treatment facility, because it's kind of a direct shot across the highway, right?
maybe. And I was gonna ask you yet, I've seen what looks like a pump station that doesn't have a shelter. It's just, you see the generator, you see some components, but it's not, there's no structure around it. Cause Harwich has both. They have the exposed ones and then they have the ones that look like little bus stops or sheds.
So the
So
Stop and Shop,
Hyannis,
that stainless steel,
Yeah, that's
Thing.
bigger, yeah.
they have a bunch of these generators. They just sit like with a silencer, right? It's a small generator, and they have a unistrat system with like a pressure treated plywood, and there's a control panel sitting on it, and they put a bunch of varieties in the front, and that's it. That's that's what they have. They probably have 20 or 30 of those.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we can't do them here, but I think because of some of them are closer to residences, and the generator actually comes on like once a week for the exercise for 15, 20 minutes. And yeah, it can be equipped with a silencer, but it just becomes a little bit of a nuisance. But I think it looks like we could look actually at two options, and nothing is set in stone at this stage, but we could either have them outside, standalone, or we could just have them housed in an enclosure.
So Jackie, what's the, well, both Jackies, I guess. The elementary school is, even though it's town owned, is under control of the school committee, so we need to approach them. And then Jackie T, if we need some sort, what's the process with, say, a private owner like the Elks?
It's just an easement.
Right, and I've talked to them a bit, they said they just have to bring it to their board meeting and they were completely fine with it.
Guess that's what I was asking, so what's the process, is there anything we should get underway now to facilitate it, so when the time comes?
Once they get a design, so we went through this with water, we have to have the actual design plan, then we get the legal easement to match it, and then we go to the registry.
So the specific siting on on the parcel is.
Yeah, yeah.
When you finalize design, you'll have that specific siting, and that's when we can.
It's a good point, though. There's gonna be hurdles either way with number 4. Because the school committee might not be happy with using that corner. Question on number 3. There's no pipes, no shown running to it. How does that work?
I think we just put it on the parcel, but we were gonna show it on the northern part, I think that one's, Chester Ave.
Oh, onto that last blue line
It's
that's.
too bad you can't use my house.
Yeah.
My house would be great for a pump station. Put it right in the little sculpture of the Nauset Lighthouse.
Yeah, so I think we were just looking to make sure we could proceed with the borings or there. Just talk about the path forward and if we thought there would be any problems with some of these sites.
Sounds like there's problems with a lot of them.
Well, there's always a process, there's always a
Yep.
process.
Yep.
And it's a permanent easement, it's not a temporary easement, you have, an underground thing there for.
Right.
But we got permission for the well on the school property. So
Sure.
it's possible. You okay with collection? Are we moving?
Sure.
To models and renderings? Back to Lauren.
Yeah. So let me share my screen again. So we have our models essentially combined now. Let me get this, let me pause it. Oh. Okay. So we have our models combined with the civil 3D surface. So essentially this is the topography of the site or the proposed site. So this, you can see kind of the edge of one of the recharge beds here. This is our treatment building and our operations building. So it is about 7 minutes long, but we have a video walkthrough to show you of the treatment plant and operations building, which I think is pretty cool. There's, again, this is, we're working towards 60%. So there's a couple things that you might notice are a little interesting, like some missing stairs. But I assure you we're working on some of those. So yeah, I will kind of talk about it a little bit as we're going through the different areas. And if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me and I can pause it and answer a question and then go back. So I'll get it started. So this goes over to our admin part of the building. If you remember maybe from some of the plans, it's got like a double vestibule as you go into the building. So what is going to happen here is that we're going to go into the hallway and then peek into the different offices as we go along. You can kind of see maybe in the top right-hand corner where where the visual is located in the building. So this is one of our first offices that we're going to be looking at. I believe this is our electrical room, which doesn't have anything in it yet at this point. And then we'll make it into another couple offices. So this is actually one of my coworkers, going through it, kind of with like video game controls and videoing it as he goes through. It's a little bit, I said if it went any faster, it was going to get me sick. So here's our locker room, and then it goes into one of our two gender neutral bathrooms that have a bathroom, a shower unit, and an area to get changed. Same thing over here. Then we go back into the hallway, and then we'll go into our conference room. And I apologize, or no, our janitor's closet. I forgot about that. And then we head into the conference room, and we were going to change some of the table setup, but we didn't publish that yet. So that'll be forthcoming in the 60% design. So as you might recall, our laboratory is kind of our pass through from the admin building side over to our filter building side. So when you go through this door here, these are actually two UV treatment units. They're the enclosed units. We've got our roll-up door just beyond that, as well as a man door. And then we'll go down some stairs. As you can kind of see, some of the piping right now is still in lines. So eventually that will be, full pipes like you'll see over here. These are our carbon vessels with the different valving manifolds within it. These are the stairs that we're missing, but will be there. And then we're going up the stairs here, going down here. That is actually the pumping that will take the effluent to the recharge beds. Up here, we're going to the aqua or the disc filters for tertiary treatment. Again, there's two systems. Then we're heading over into the treatment building. This is the Headworks facility. This one's a little choppy. I do apologize, but you've got what it's kind of flashing in the front is the a dumpster and the washer compactor that is attached to the screening unit. You can see our channels leading into what is the influent pump station, kind of where we're standing on top of right now. And our vortex grit unit was right below where we were just walking right there. So you might see here that the ground level kind of is where the cursor is right now. We did, and actually here, I'll pause it for 1 second. We did make that depression from the ground level down into the channel in order to make the channel shorter for ease of operations and maintenance. So if we had kept the channel, at that ground level, we would have had like a 18-inch wide, 7-foot deep channel, which would be difficult to maintain in the future. So that's why we kind of made that step down in the Headworks facility to facilitate that in the future. That area will also have monorails to help take out the pumps for replacement or repair in the future. So this is one of our stairwells that goes down to the pipe gallery that you'll see in a second. And you can kind of see the differences between the CMU block and the concrete. So that's concrete right there, and I'm sure you saw the CMU block. And again, if you do have questions, feel free to interrupt me. Going in here to our pipe gallery with some of our sludge pumps that will lead into the aerobic digester, which is on the north side of the building. Got some of our valving. And this is, we had to have 2 entrances, or basically forms of egress for life safety, based on the length of the digester gallery, or the pipe gallery, pardon me. I got another stairwell. This is leading up to, I'm gonna pause again. So this is actually leading up to a room above the headworks facility. I think we might have mentioned at a recent meeting, we did raise the pitch of the roof a little bit, and actually are going to change the truss system to give us more ceiling height. This room will be further subdivided for mechanical equipment and storage. But the other fun feature about this now is that with some of the changes that we made, we have a door that'll lead right out into the SBR, I guess, tanks and walkways. So these are our SBR tanks with the covers on that we've been talking about. Obviously, there's piping and controls and sensors that will go down into the tanks. Got some windows everywhere for getting some natural light into the treatment facility. And this are stairs down to the north side of the treatment facility. And right here, we're walking into our blower room. And below us is the post equalization tank. So you'll kind of see the hatch that's in there. And I think we might at some point dip down into there as well. And this is one of my favorite views. It's just because, I don't know, it just looks cool. So this is actually our chemical room that has our chemical skids with the pumps on it, as well as our tanks. So if you'll notice, so right here, the tanks are set down into the ground. This is to accommodate our secondary containment for the different chemicals. And in the background here are what are called cowl walls, and they are actually set in there with a bracket system so that in the future they can be removed. So when the tanks are at their useful life, which will be well before the building is at its useful life, they can be, the walls can be taken down, and then the tanks can be removed and replaced as needed. And then the cowl walls can be reattached. So going through our chemical room, and you can see like some of our life safety equipment, our showers. And this goes down into our pipe gallery. This is an access hatch to allow us to remove the pumps from the gallery if they need to be repaired or replaced. And then this actually popped us into the tanks itself. So this is actually the SBR tank. You can see some of the mixing equipment, the diffusers in the bottom, as well as the decanter that takes the clarified water out of the tank as part of the sequencing batch reactor process. And then our cover overhead, obviously. And this is our SBR tank that will be for phase 2. That right now is essentially just an equalization tank. And that's it. So there's, essentially from this model, again, for maybe some of them who hadn't seen it before, it's done in Revit. And we're able to basically, stitch all of these models together with the GPS points. And from these models, we're also able to create what you typically see from like a 2D drawing. And I know I sent a few of those with some caveats that they were internal. But it, allows us to make the plans and sections for the project, and helps also with clash analysis. So, just as we were walking, I don't know, the one thing you might have seen, like there was through the walkway, there was a handrail. So that's something that we'll see as we go through the QA/QC process and, fix. I guess any questions on that?
The covers. I hope you won't go too far with designing the covers. I think we should consider them as an option. And we need to get some costing done on them, so we know how much they're costing. A lot of our experience from visiting the Orleans plant was that the very little odor coming out of those tanks. So just not sure about the cost benefit on those.
Yeah, I
think-
mean, at this point, we are proceeding with the design because even to have it as an ad alternate, we still have to have the design ready.
Right.
And we still have to cut, which granted it's smaller, but we still have to cover the sludge holding tanks that are on the north side of the building. So we still need some covers anyway. And honestly, we've kind of already gone through the process of figuring out the structural supports that will be needed to span that tank. But yeah, we are definitely considering making it an ad alternate.
And I think that's reasonable, but unless we're like way over budget, I wouldn't take it out because it was presented as covered. I think it's a value
You can blame it
engineering
on us.
issue.
Exactly, value engineering. but-
Yes. So let's
but
get
the
the
point-
cost of it first.
Yeah. But with value engineering, you just don't wanna let the design get so far ahead that to back it out is harder than just building it out. So anyway, I think we're all on the same page. The sludge pumps, that was something that was recommended to us when we visited Orleans by the plant manager. That the sludge pumps are inside, the ones that pump them into the trucks that take it away. And,
Yeah.
So that he thought it was important that they be inside for sound. And also that it was important that they be sized large enough so that the vacuum pump on the pickup truck didn't have to be utilized, and so that it would be quieter. Is that being considered?
So yes, the pumps are definitely indoors. So let me actually grab the site plan so I can kind of show you where that'll be.
Rich, is that the piece of equipment where they put the baffle thing on top of it?
No, that was intake for the
Sorry.
fans.
So the pumps are actually in the basement of the building right here. And we are having the hauling contractor essentially pull up to the building right in this area, and they'll be able to pump directly into their truck's tank to
Right.
haul away. I'll double check on the vacuum system, but I don't believe we'll need that. It will be, they'll rely on the pumps that we have to get it from because the tank's all the way over here. So but we didn't want to kind of encumber this area. We felt it would be easier to have the truck park over here. So it'll pump over to this area where the truck is from these two tanks. Did that answer all your questions?
Only a question I had looking at the plans was all the glass, it looks like it's glass on the east side of the operations building.
Yeah, so actually those are what are considered the cowl walls, and I think it's spelled KAWL, and they're actually not glass, they're more of a translucent panel. I guess I'd kind of equate it to, I don't know, like on a barn, you might see panels that are lighter colored, more translucent.
Yeah.
It's not that basic, but you know, it's more along those lines to allow natural light to come in, but also, you know, flexible enough that those are the pieces that'll be taken down in the future when the tanks need to be
Get those
taken out.
tanks out of there.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you can do like a knockout wall made out of brick, so you end up kind of almost having like a little construction joint, but with the
Yeah.
brick. But that ends up for the 3 tanks, that's a lot more work.
Sure. No, I just, when I thought they might be 3-story windows that I
Oh.
could see dollar signs, but
Yeah.
like maybe they're less expensive than brick wall would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they look kind of cool on
Yeah,
paper,
yeah.
who knows, you know?
Are they those large squares, or is it one?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have to get more details on the architectural drawings.
I
Look
thought
at
that
the
was
fire
really interesting.
Laura, is it, looking at the plans, was the blower room at grade level?
Yes, so the blower room is at grade level right here.
Is that, substantial noise generation from the blowers?
So the blowers will have silencers on them to, you know, keep them at the appropriate decibel level. And we're also making considerations for any louvers that are in the room and making sure that they're acoustical louvers that will help deaden the sound. Actually, something that we're working on coordinating right now is a noise study to make sure that we you know, stay below the regulated decibel levels. So that's something we're going to be coordinating shortly. The team's meeting next week to get the background levels at the site. But yeah,
Is
so
there any-
they'll.
Is there any consideration to having those in the basement? Is there room for that type of thing?
So the basement, no, probably not at this point. So the actually right below the blower room is our post equalization tank. So there's actually water in there, essentially.
The blowers were the noisy part of the Orleans.
Those are in the basement in Orleans, right?
Yeah, they're in the
Well,
basement.
everything's.
I think there's a couple things that we could do, maybe suggest for the blowers, since they're going to be located indoor and they do generate some noise. What I've seen done in the past, the wall cavity, the wall assembly could be, you know, you could put like mineral wool in there or something, some sort of an insulation in the walls to kind of reduce that potential sound. You know, I know we had done those for a water treatment plant in Weymouth. They're pretty massive, but the plant is kind of a little bit away from the residences. I think when we visited Orleans about a year ago, the operator was saying the same thing, that be some complaints from the blowers. But if they're indoor and then the walls are kind of, you know, equipped with a sound barrier, I think that would reduce a lot of that noise.
Yeah, I don't think the complaint in Orleans, I mean, it had to do with the blowers, but more, not them directly, more the ventilation or no, not the ventilator, the intake.
I think it was the intake.
Bath coming from the outside
Yeah.
wasn't properly baffled perhaps.
Yeah,
Um,
so we are
yeah.
planning. Oh, go ahead, Jackie.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to clarify if the air coming in or the air being pushed out.
Coming in.
Yeah, so how we're designing these blowers they are not actually pulling air from the outside, which is sometimes done. They are actually pulling room air. So there won't be a direct connection from the blower to the outside. The connection will be through a louver in the room. So, you know, it'll be passively essentially pulling air into the room through these acoustical louvers. And I guess by acoustical, I mean like a silencers. They probably have some sort of noise deadening, you know, system in it, kind of like Ziad was talking about. And then the air that's getting pushed out is actually the air that's going into the SBR tanks at the bottom and bubbling up to provide oxygen to the system.
That's interesting. So it's not drawing air from the outside and it's not exhausting air to the outside.
Correct.
And the blowers are only used for the SBR process, is that right?
There's also air going to the aerobic digesters. So aerobic, like essentially they have oxygen going through them too. So there's similar diffusers at the bottom of those tanks.
On the site plans, you don't show any improvements on the land along Orchard Road. Have you determined you don't need berms on the road along that area?
So as far as this area goes, we're not planning on cutting. I know at one point, I think we were looking at the potential of cutting down trees and aligning the building a little bit closer to the roadway, but we're not planning on doing that now. So I believe, I'd have to double check, but this is pretty close, actually. This is pretty close to the existing tree line. Looks like we might be encroaching a little bit on it right here and right here. So yeah, we're not gonna necessarily encroach on this. If anything, we didn't engage landscape architecture. We kind of wanted to make sure the site plan was all set before we got them involved. But we will be looking to the town to, understand additional areas where we might want some type of fence, whether it be an ornamental or, just a chain link fence. In addition to what we've already proposed, as well as additional plantings to help shield areas.
The other question I had is, town really doesn't have an operations person right now to review these documents from a operations standpoint. Does it make sense to hire a consultant that works full-time in this industry from an operations standpoint to be part of 819 of the next design meeting after that to review the documents from an operations standpoint? Might be a cheap thing to do that would provide input. Operations people look at things differently than engineers and contractors. So, I mean, when we walked to Orleans, we heard stuff that he said, if I was here, this is what I would be doing differently.
Or if I had designed it, yeah.
Right, so. I just throw that out there as a potential.
Yeah,
Well,
honestly, it's something we've thought about suggesting is, engaging potential contract operators, sooner than later.
I don't know if that's appropriate. We have someone that's reached out to us that's interested in working for us. And I'm,
I was thinking about you.
kind of a recruitment type process and, we have to go through a hiring process for that. And I wouldn't want to have someone come in that would be.
If you hire
Viola,
Yeah.
just hire someone.
Hey, what's the greatest store in the Orleans?
Yeah.
It would have one of their employees.
We can pay one of them.
So,
I mean, we're not talking about long term, we're talking about
just look these over.
his a number of hours, what to look at, which is it? It's fixed price. I don't think it's a bad investment.
Lauren, Jack, do you think is there enough detail on the plans at this point so that it would be helpful?
Guess I don't know what the 60% looks like.
Yeah.
Well, presumably at the 60% workshop, it'll be a full 60%. But if we had somebody on board before that, that gives them a little bit of time to ramp up for that, and then they can follow up that meeting with some further comments, but guess we'll have to explore what options might be out there.
When I talked to the.
Barnstable,
Viola, he said he would help us out in any way possible.
yeah, well, I think that's the obvious choice is reaching out to Orleans. It's right nearby. It's a similar operation. Barnstable have contract ops, or that's DPW run, I think. They have their own operators.
Provincetown, that's-
Yeah, no, Barnstable.
Yeah, I
think
can't
Orleans-
remember.
Orleans would be more obvious because it's similar treatment. right? So,
We have some contract.
Well, I think that's something we can work on for, give you an update, definitely at the next meeting and maybe in the interim, just an email if we have any success on it.
What's the name of that? You know?
The fellow,
No, the.
Viola or Veolia,
Viola.
Veolia.
So where do you
I
want
think
to-
they have some bench.
This Whitewater maintains.
So what are you thinking of, Steve? It's like a 30-hour contract or?
Yeah, it would be much, you need a couple of days to review the documents, and then just to do a presentation that would occur from the designers. I mean, there's two shots at this, it'd be a 90% design too, but you can't go backwards at that point usually.
Now's the time.
Yeah,
He did say that redundant. I remember saying that.
Any more questions for Lauren?
No.
Actually, sorry, I do.
Okay.
Lauren, there's nothing on here referencing odor control systems. Is that just a mechanical that's kind of
Oh.
added on after the design or?
Nope. So sorry, this is, well, okay, this is not looking great, but yeah, the odor control unit is actually right here at the bottom, on the west side of the plant. So essentially there'll be ductwork that'll lead into the odor control unit. And then there'll be biofilters underground.
And is that like a mechanical component we just buy like prefab, or do you guys have to design the
It-
odor control unit?
Yeah, I believe it's something that's somewhat, I guess I'll say a standard size based on the amount of air that we need to treat. I will also say that part of our, I guess, evaluation of an ad alternate, we are making two separate odor control systems. So one will encompass the must-haves for odor control, which is the headworks facility and the two aerobic digester tanks. And then the second unit will accommodate the SBR tanks with covers. Because it is a large airspace, like headspace above the water, as well as something that varies a little bit as the SBR is going through the process. So knowing that could be an ad alternate, it might not get installed. We didn't want to make an extremely large odor control unit, so there'll be two of them.
And Lauren, just to Peter's earlier point, the second half of pumping the sludge up from the basement was to also have a some sort of connection in the area where that the truck can have a flexible pipe attached to its vent,
Mhm.
so that it doesn't vent out to the open air, it vents out into
Oh, the vent. Okay. Now I
the
know what you're
truck
saying.
vent.
Yes.
But
So
the key there
that,
is there's gotta be a connection on the side of the building that can connect to the odor control.
yeah, sorry, I thought you were talking about the pump on the actual truck. Yeah, so that's actually another reason why we put the pipe connection on this end of the building, was because this headworks room right here is the room that's getting the air treated. So then it could hook up right into the system right there and make its way to the odor control unit.
Right.
Yeah, so that is being accommodated. Sorry, I misunderstood the question the first time.
And then I think my last question is, did we confirm that the electrical room, the admin building, had the space for the IT requirements?
You know, I know that the team met. Let me get back to you on that one. I know it can find a space no matter what, but I'll confirm exactly where it is.
Did you cover solar?
So as far as the solar, I think what was decided at a recent meeting was that we are designing the two buildings to accommodate being able to attach and support solar panels, but we weren't actually designing solar panels, or like GHD isn't designing solar panels and coordinating that effort on behalf of the town. But it will be designed to accommodate it in the future.
But the alignment wasn't good. But the alignment wasn't good on this, so for sure.
It's not ideal.
It's not ideal. It's possible.
So if I heard you right, there'll be a separate odor control unit or at least a larger one required if we do put the covers on. So I just want
Correct.
to make sure we capture that cost in the cost of the covers. So we know what we're looking at for the total cost of the
Yeah.
covers.
So I guess I see what you're saying there. So yeah, I
Okay.
guess it would probably still be a separate line item, but it would be incorporated together if we're looking at, we could incorporate it as the cost of the covers, I guess, or when we're
Yeah.
looking at an ad alternate, it would be combined.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, one thing I did want to add too is that for the video, we are looking into maybe shortening it up a little bit and splitting it into the treatment facility and operations facility so that the town can share it on their website if they would like.
Thanks, Lauren.
Welcome.
Preliminary cost estimates, is that back to you, Jackie, and are you doing that next meeting or is that this?
I did provide one.
Yeah,
I
so
think it was pretty much, I guess I kind of covered it a little bit. So it's our tabulated quantities from CAD, and then we rounded up to be more like the big quantities would be. And I think I just mentioned the added pipe, the services, and that we were still